I never thought a quiet Thursday evening would change my life forever. My name is Alex, I'm 23, and I've always lived a life that felt split in two. By day, I'm just a normal guy working at a small digital marketing firm in downtown Los Angeles. By night, I explore a secret side of myself, a side that only whispers in private, behind closed doors. Crossdressing had started as curiosity, a mere experiment, but over the past year, it had become something more intimate, almost addictive. The thrill of transforming my appearance, the delicate brush of lipstick on my lips, the smooth slide of stockings over my legs, it made me feel alive in ways my normal life never could. I lived alone in a modest apartment, decorated with an odd mix of minimalist furniture and my own secret stash of dresses, wigs, and makeup. The walls were neutral, but my bedroom, a sanctuary, was a riot of color. Mannequin heads perched on shelves, each sporting a different wig. Drawers packed with makeup palettes, brushes, and shoes lined one wall. My closet was divided, half for my everyday clothes, half for the outfits I wore when stepping into another version of myself. To anyone else, it was just clutter. To me, it was freedom. Alexa was my girlfriend of 2 years, and honestly, I still didn't know if she fully understood me. She was gorgeous, confident, and had this effortless way of making everyone in the room feel like they mattered. Our relationship was sweet but complicated. I'd always kept my cross-dressing a secret, not because I was ashamed, well, maybe a little, but because I feared losing her trust. Alexa loved me, but I didn't know if she could ever understand this part of me. Still, I couldn't stop. The urge to transform was too strong, too personal. It was my escape and my confession all at once. That evening, Alexa had gone out to meet some friends for a last-minute dinner. I was alone in the apartment, my heart pounding with anticipation. I had bought a new lipstick that day, a deep ruby red that promised elegance, sophistication, and a hint of danger. I had also found a dress that I'd admired online for weeks, a sleek, emerald green cocktail dress that shimmered in the light. It had arrived just this morning, and I hadn't even tried it on yet. Tonight felt like the perfect opportunity. Just a simple practice session, I told myself, nothing serious. But we all know how just practice can spiral into something entirely different. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that lets every creak of the floor sound like a shout. I locked the door, pulled the curtains, and breathed in the scent of my solitude. This was my time. Slowly, I laid out the outfit on the bed. Dress, heels, matching clutch, and a delicate necklace. I hesitated just for a moment, staring at the shoes. High heels had always fascinated me, not just the way they made my legs look, but the way they changed my posture, my gait, my very presence. I slipped them on, feeling the shift immediately. There was a vulnerability in the wobble, a thrill in the sway. I couldn't help but grin. Next came the makeup. I sat in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection as if it were a stranger I wanted to befriend. The first strokes of foundation evened out my skin, and as I brushed on eyeshadow, I felt the transformation begin, not just in appearance, but in my demeanor. The ruby lipstick was the final touch. I pursed my lips carefully, taking in the full effect. Alex, the guy, was fading, replaced by someone more confident, more daring, more beautiful. My heart raced, my palms grew sweaty, but I couldn't stop looking. Who was this person? And why did I feel like I'd found a piece of myself I didn't even know existed? Even though I was alone, a strange sense of exposure ran through me. Part of me feared someone walking in unexpectedly, maybe Alexa returning early. Maybe a neighbor seeing something through the window. The thought made my pulse quicken. It was the perfect combination of excitement and dread, the kind that made my nights feel electric, even when the world outside my apartment remained oblivious. I took a few tentative steps around the room in the heels, marveling at the sound they made on the wooden floor. Each click echoed like a heartbeat, reminding me that I was alive, that I was daring to embrace this secret side of myself. My reflection stared back, confident yet vulnerable, innocent yet provocatively daring. I felt both liberated and nervous. This wasn't just practice anymore. It felt like stepping into a new life, even if only for a few hours. I couldn't help but think of Alexa. What would she say if she walked in right now? Would she laugh? Be shocked? Or worse, be disappointed? The thought made me shiver, but it also made my pulse race in a different way, an exhilaration that tingled from my toes to my head. I was balancing on the edge of two worlds, the life I showed everyone and the life I craved for myself. Tonight, there was no turning back. The makeup, the dress, the heels, they weren't just adornments. They were a key, unlocking a version of me that was bold, daring, and undeniably magnetic. I didn't know yet that this small, secret experiment would spiral into something far larger than I could imagine, a transformation that would take me from hidden practices in my bedroom to the dazzling, nerve-wracking world of beauty pageants, public attention, and life-altering choices. But that's a story for later. For now, I just stood there, staring at the mirror, feeling the thrill, the fear, and the undeniable allure of what I'd just become. And in that quiet apartment, alone with my reflection, I smiled. Something had shifted tonight. Something had begun. And I couldn't wait to see where it would lead. The thrill of standing in front of the mirror didn't fade. It only grew stronger. I adjusted the dress, smoothing the fabric over my hips and thighs, feeling the luxurious material cling to me in all the right places. The heels clicked against the floor as I took a slow turn, studying my reflection from every angle. The Alex in the mirror wasn't just a version of me. He, or rather, she, was someone entirely new. The ruby lipstick made my lips look fuller. My eyeshadow highlighted a depth in my gaze I had never seen before. I breathed in slowly, savoring the sharp scent of the new perfume I had sprayed lightly on my wrists, a soft jasmine that mingled with the faint scent of my own shampoo. But even in my apartment, alone as I thought I was, there was a flicker of anxiety. Alexa could return at any moment. The thought made my heart tighten, a delicious tension coiling inside me. It wasn't just the fear of being caught. It was the knowledge that I was crossing a line, stepping out of my normal life and into something exhilaratingly dangerous. My fingers trembled slightly as I picked up a pair of sheer black tights, tugging them up my legs with careful precision. The sensation of smooth fabric sliding against my skin sent a shiver through me. Each step toward completing the look made me feel more exposed, more vulnerable, yet more alive than I had ever felt. I started experimenting with poses, imitating the graceful movements I had seen in magazines and online tutorials. The click of my heels punctuated the room like the rhythm of a heartbeat, a reminder of the dual life I was leading. I tilted my head, smiled softly, and ran my fingers through the wig, adjusting the curls to frame my face just right. The transformation wasn't just external, it was deeply internal. With each adjustment, each brushstroke, I felt confidence blooming where hesitation had once lived. Alex was fading further, replaced by someone daring, someone beautiful, someone I was both proud and terrified to be. Yet the thrill was accompanied by a gnawing tension. My mind kept replaying what-ifs. What if Alexa walked in now? What if a neighbor looked through the blinds and saw me like this? The anxiety was intoxicating, a sharp edge that made every movement feel weighty, every sound amplified. I paused, straining to listen to the faint hum of the city outside. For a moment, the world felt suspended, as if the apartment itself was holding its breath along with me. I decided to push the suspense even further. Normally, I would stay seated when doing makeup, but tonight, I wanted to feel the full effect of the outfit, the heels, the dress, the transformation in motion. I stepped onto the small platform by the window, the heels making the wooden floorboards groan under my weight. I practiced walking, swaying my hips ever so slightly, feeling the natural rhythm that came with balancing on stilettos. Each step was a small victory, a confirmation that I could inhabit this persona fully, even if only in private. It was then that I noticed the first subtle shift in my emotions. Alongside the thrill of transformation, there was a creeping, almost dangerous exhilaration. I wasn't just practicing makeup anymore. I was performing. Every glance at the mirror was a rehearsal, every adjustment a preparation for an audience I didn't yet have. I was walking a line between private desire and public spectacle, and the tension of that boundary sent adrenaline racing through my veins. My fingers shook slightly as I adjusted my necklace, the clasp catching in my hair and sending a small shiver down my spine. Vulnerable, exposed, alive. These sensations blended into a heady mix that I couldn't resist. And then, just as I was losing myself in the mirror, I heard it, a faint click from the hallway. My heart jumped. The sound was almost imperceptible, but my heightened senses caught it instantly. Alexa? No, that wasn't possible. She wouldn't be back for another hour. But the apartment was old, creaky in ways that sometimes made the smallest sounds sound like footsteps. Still, I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The heels on my feet felt suddenly heavy, every step I had practiced just moments ago now a potential betrayal of my secret. My eyes darted to the door, half expecting it to swing open at any second. I reminded myself to stay calm. I wasn't going anywhere and no one should be here. Still, the incident sparked a new layer of suspense, a delicious fear that added to the thrill of my secret world. I tiptoed toward the living room, each step measured, the fabric of my dress rustling softly. I checked the locks on the door again, reassuring myself that no one could possibly walk in. And yet, the feeling of being watched lingered, an invisible presence that made my heart pound faster. Every shadow, every sound took on a new significance, intensifying the emotional stakes of my private performance. Returning to my reflection, I noticed something surprising. I wasn't just crossdressing anymore. I was becoming a character, a persona that seemed to exist fully separate from Alex. The makeup, the dress, the heels, they weren't just tools. They were instruments of transformation. I felt a surge of power and vulnerability intertwined. My reflection smiled back at me, confident and daring, yet the tiniest trace of uncertainty lingered in my eyes. It was that uncertainty, the sense that anything could happen next, that made the night electric. I spent the next hour experimenting with different poses, angles, and expressions, fully immersing myself in this new identity. Each adjustment of my wig, each swipe of lipstick, made me feel more like the person I longed to be. Yet with every flourish came the constant, nagging awareness that my secret was fragile, that one misstep could shatter it all. The tension was exquisite, the thrill intoxicating. I laughed softly at myself, a mixture of delight and nervousness, realizing that this was no longer just a practice. It was a rehearsal for something far bigger, far more public, far more consequential than I could yet imagine. By now, I had fully embraced my reflection, the glow of transformation radiating from every angle. The emerald dress clung to me like a second skin, and the heels elevated not just my stature, but my entire presence. I felt seen, even though no one else was here. My hands ran along the curves of the dress, smoothing out imaginary wrinkles, adjusting straps, and ensuring that nothing betrayed the careful facade I had created. I was meticulous, almost obsessive, because every detail mattered. Every brushstroke, every curl of my wig, every carefully chosen accessory was a step closer to perfection. And yet, beneath that perfection, a nervous flutter refused to leave my chest. I moved closer to the window, the city lights spilling across the room in golden streaks. The urban hum beyond my apartment provided a strange sort of accompaniment, a pulse that matched my own heartbeat. I practiced walking again, deliberately slow this time, letting the heels guide my rhythm. I imagined an audience, judges at a pageant, a crowd cheering at a talent show, even Alexis standing somewhere, finally seeing this side of me that had been hidden for so long. The fantasy thrilled me, made my pulse quicken, but it also reminded me that I was teetering on a knife edge between my private life and the world beyond. Then it happened, a soft knock on the door. My heart stopped. I froze mid-step, the heels suddenly feeling like lead. Who could it be? I hadn't ordered anything, and Alexa wasn't due back for another hour. The knock came again, slightly louder this time. My breath caught, and I pressed my hand against my mouth, the sound of my pulse hammering in my ears. Each beat seemed to echo, a countdown I couldn't control. The knock, innocuous as it might be, was enough to make every fiber of my body tense. I debated ignoring it, hoping the person would go away, but my curiosity and a tiny, reckless thrill pushed me toward the peephole. No one was there. My stomach twisted with relief, but that relief was quickly replaced by a strange, exhilarating rush. Someone had been close enough to knock, close enough to see me if they had looked through the door. The thought made my chest tighten and my mind race. I whispered to myself, "It's fine. You're alone. Just keep going." But the small intrusion had shifted everything. The apartment no longer felt entirely safe. It was a stage, and someone might be watching, waiting to witness the act that had become my obsession. I turned back to the mirror, trying to shake off the unease. It didn't help. My reflection now seemed alive in a way it hadn't before, almost mocking me with its perfection. I ran my fingers over my lips, testing the feel of the lipstick, then traced the curve of my jawline. The sensation was intoxicating. This persona I had created, strong, beautiful, elegant, was more than an illusion. It was a promise of who I could be if I dared. And dare I did. I twirled in the dress, letting the fabric swish around me, the heels clicking against the floor in a rhythm that seemed both triumphant and defiant. I could almost hear the applause of a crowd that existed only in my imagination. The next stage was hair and makeup fine-tuning. I adjusted the wig one last time, curling a few stray strands to soften my face. My eyeshadow smudged slightly during the process, and for a moment, panic surged. What if the flaw ruined everything? I carefully blended it out, smoothing it with the brush, and stepped back. Better. Almost perfect. The transformation was nearly complete. But the more I looked, the more I realized that perfection was intoxicating and dangerous. Each glance in the mirror made me feel more real, more alive, yet more exposed, as if one wrong move could shatter this carefully constructed illusion. I moved to the bedroom closet, selecting a small clutch to match the dress. Inside, I tucked away a few essentials: compact, lipstick, and my phone. I realized I had subconsciously been rehearsing this for hours, each moment adding to the suspense, the thrill, and the anticipation. Alone in my apartment, I had created a world where I could be anyone, do anything, and yet the shadow of discovery loomed over me like a storm cloud. I shivered slightly, not from cold, but from the combination of excitement and fear. As I practiced a few final poses in the mirror, I noticed a small detail I had overlooked. One of my heels had left a faint scuff mark on the floor. My heart leapt. How could such a minor detail feel like a warning? It was absurd, yet the symbolism was clear. Even the smallest imperfection could betray me. My mind raced with scenarios. Alexa opening the door early, a neighbor glancing through the window, a friend stopping by unexpectedly. Every what if amplified the tension, making the fantasy of transformation feel dangerously real. I laughed softly at myself, the sound a mixture of amusement and nervousness. The stakes had grown simply because I allowed them to grow. Then, the unexpected happened. My phone buzzed on the bed. Normally, it would have been a relief, a casual notification from a friend or a meme from Alexa. But tonight, the sudden vibration felt like an alarm. I froze, my reflection staring back at me with eyes wide and unblinking. The text previewed on the screen was from Alexa. "Hey, just might be home early. Don't want to spoil the surprise." My stomach dropped. My pulse raced, my knees felt weak, and the heels suddenly seemed impossibly high. Alexa, home early. The thrill of transformation collided violently with the fear of discovery. I had to act fast. Could I revert to Alex in time? Could I hide the evidence? Or would she walk in and see me fully immersed in this secret persona, the one I had created for myself but had never shown to anyone? For the first time that evening, I felt the weight of my dual life pressing down. The heels, the dress, the makeup, they weren't just tools of escape anymore. They were liabilities. Yet even as panic surged, a strange part of me, a reckless, daring part, thrived in the tension. This was the edge I had been dancing on all along, between secrecy and revelation, fear and exhilaration, reality and fantasy. I took a deep breath, clutching the small purse like a lifeline, and considered my options. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in. Every sound, the hum of the fridge, the creak of the floor, the distant siren from the street, was amplified. I knew that within minutes, everything could change. My secret could be exposed, my carefully crafted fantasy destroyed, or it could evolve into something far more thrilling than I had ever imagined. With a trembling hand, I smoothed my hair one last time, adjusted the hem of the dress, and whispered to myself, "All right, let's see what happens." And in that moment, suspended between fear and anticipation, I realized that my life as Alex, the quiet, cautious version of myself, was about to collide head-on with the persona I had been nurturing in secret. And nothing would ever be the same. The text from Alexa replayed in my mind like a siren. "Might be home early. Don't want to spoil the surprise." Just the thought of her walking in at any moment made the air in the apartment feel heavier, charged with a mix of fear and excitement. My reflection stared back at me, confident and poised, yet I could feel the underlying tremor of anxiety in my hands. Every carefully curated detail, the dress, the heels, the wig, the makeup, was suddenly at risk of exposure. I had to decide, retreat to Alex or embrace the risk and stay in the persona that thrilled me so deeply. I moved to the living room, heels clicking softly against the wooden floor. Each step made me hyper-aware of the sounds in the apartment. The shadows cast by the city lights outside seemed longer, more menacing. Even though I knew Alexa wasn't there yet, my imagination filled the empty space with possibilities. Her walking in unexpectedly, a neighbor noticing through the blinds, a delivery person suddenly ringing the doorbell. Every potential interruption made my pulse spike, and yet, the thrill of it, the forbidden edge, was addictive. I took a few steps toward the couch, clutching my small purse tightly. The heels were starting to hurt, but I barely noticed. Each step, each sway of the hips, felt like a confirmation of the persona I had painstakingly crafted. I practiced shifting my weight, adjusting my posture, and even tried a playful tilt of the head that Alexa would have found charming. In the mirror on the wall, my reflection seemed almost alive, a teasing reminder that I was stepping further into a version of myself that I rarely let anyone see. I paused and examined my hands. The nails, freshly painted in a glossy nude shade, caught the light. The lipstick still looked perfect. I touched my cheek, feeling the smooth foundation. The transformation was almost magical. Alex was fading into the background, replaced by someone daring, confident, and undeniably captivating. And yet, the anxiety, the tension, was always there, a reminder that this fantasy could be interrupted at any moment. A sudden noise from the hallway made me jump, a soft thump, like someone dropping something. My heart leapt into my throat. I froze, standing perfectly still, heels digging slightly into the floor. The apartment felt smaller, the walls closer, the shadows darker. I could almost hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Was it Alexa? Was it a neighbor? Or had I just imagined it? Every possibility seemed equally terrifying and thrilling. I considered my options. I could rush to change back into Alex, but the thought made me shiver. I had invested too much time in this transformation, and the persona I had created felt too powerful, too alive, to abandon so easily. The fear of being caught was intoxicating, almost as thrilling as the act itself. I whispered to myself, "Stay calm. You can handle this." But even as I said it, my hands shook slightly. The apartment felt like a stage, and I was performing for an audience that might appear at any second. I decided to embrace the tension. I moved closer to the mirror, striking poses, adjusting my dress, practicing the smiles and gestures I had seen on beauty pageant stages. I imagined Alexa walking in, surprised and impressed, maybe even intrigued by this daring side of me she had never seen. The thought made my heart race in a completely different way, hope mingling with fear, excitement with vulnerability. The persona I had built was alive now, demanding attention, even in the quiet confines of my apartment. Suddenly, another sound, a soft scraping from the kitchen, made me freeze. My mind raced. Maybe it was just the refrigerator settling. Maybe it was something else. I tiptoed toward the source, the heels making faint clicks against the floor. Every nerve in my body was on edge. My fingers gripped the purse, the small lifeline that connected me to some semblance of safety. My reflection in the hallway mirror caught my eye. The confident, beautiful persona stared back at me, yet the tremor in my hands betrayed my vulnerability. I remembered a detail I had overlooked earlier. The back zipper of the dress wasn't fully secured. My hands moved to adjust it, fumbling slightly as the tension in my body made precision difficult. The dress slipped a fraction, and for a moment, panic surged. I quickly fixed it, but the small scare intensified the thrill. The combination of danger and allure was almost overwhelming. I was teetering on the edge of revelation, and the exhilaration was addictive. I returned to the living room, taking a deep breath. My mind was a whirlwind of what-ifs and fantasies. What if Alexa did walk in? What if she was impressed rather than shocked? What if my secret was no longer a secret by the end of the night? The questions hung in the air like sparks waiting to ignite. I realized that this transformation was more than just physical. It was emotional, psychological, a challenge to my own courage, my own identity. The act of standing there in the heels and dress, fully immersed in this persona, was both a declaration and a gamble. To steady myself, I practiced a few more poses in front of the mirror, letting my hands brush against my hips and shoulders, letting my head tilt in ways that accentuated the curves and angles of the outfit. Each movement made me feel more alive, more daring. I laughed softly at the thrill of it, the mixture of fear and exhilaration pushing me to take risks I wouldn't dare in my normal life. I twirled once, letting the dress flare slightly, and caught my reflection in the corner mirror. The image was stunning, confident, elegant, and entirely captivating. And then, the unexpected happened. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Alexa. Seriously, I might be home any minute. Can't wait to see you, my chest tightened. The realization hit me like a wave. She could walk in at any second. The suspense, which had been a delicious tension until now, became almost unbearable. Every click of the heels on the floor, every rustle of the dress, every brush of my fingers against the makeup, any of it could betray me. Yet, even as fear surged, I felt a strange, thrilling pride. I was pushing boundaries, living on the edge, and the persona I had created demanded attention, even if only from my own reflection. I took a deep, steadying breath, gripping the small clutch tightly. The city lights outside shimmered, the apartment seemed to shrink around me, and I realized that the night had transformed into something more than practice. It was a test of courage, identity, and control. The heels, the dress, the makeup, they were no longer just tools of self-expression. They were instruments in a delicate dance between secrecy and... The apartment felt impossibly small, each shadow stretching longer than it should, each sound magnified in my heightened state. Alexa's messages continued to ping on my phone, teasing me, threatening to collapse the careful world I had built around my secret persona. I gripped the emerald dress, heels clicking sharply on the wooden floor, trying to calm the whirlwind of panic and exhilaration inside me. She could walk in at any second. The thought made my heart hammer in my chest, but oddly, it also sent a thrill racing down my spine. I moved toward the hallway mirror, examining myself from every angle. The transformation was complete. The wig perfectly framed my face, the makeup flawless, the dress hugging every curve just right. Yet perfection felt fragile, like a glass sculpture balanced on the edge of a cliff. One wrong step, one creak of the floor, and everything could shatter. I ran my hands over the smooth fabric, feeling the vulnerability and power intertwined in a way I had never experienced before. A sudden, sharp knock on the door froze me mid-step. My stomach dropped. Alexa? I couldn't think. My breath caught, and the heels felt suddenly treacherous under my feet. I tiptoed toward the door, each step deliberate, trying to suppress the loud clicks of the heels. My reflection in the hallway mirror stared back at me, a perfect version of me poised and beautiful, yet trembling inside. I glanced at my phone again. Another message. I'm really close. Don't cheat now, my chest tightened. The teasing tone made the fear almost unbearable, but it also fueled something deeper, an intoxicating mix of desire, daring, and raw vulnerability. My hands shook as I adjusted the dress one last time. The zipper at the back threatened to slip, a tiny imperfection that could betray me. I held my breath and smoothed it down, praying it would hold. And then the door handle rattled. My pulse surged. I wasn't sure if I should answer or stay hidden, frozen in a pose that made me feel both alive and exposed. The adrenaline coursing through me sharpened my senses. I could hear the soft hum of Alexa's car outside, the faint sound of traffic, the distant sirens. Every noise was amplified, every creak and rustle a potential disaster. I tiptoed to the living room, clutching the small purse like a shield, wondering if I could even maintain the persona I had created if she saw me now. The door opened slowly, and Alexa stepped inside. My heart stopped. She paused in the doorway, eyes widening just slightly. The air between us was thick with tension. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She looked at me, fully, completely, taking in the dress, the heels, the makeup, the transformation that had taken me so long to perfect. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to disappear all at once. But I stayed frozen, balancing on the edge of discovery, every muscle taut with fear. Alexa's gaze lingered on my reflection in the mirror behind her. Then she looked back at me, a mixture of surprise, curiosity, and something I couldn't quite read. My chest ached with anticipation. Was she judging me? Accepting me? The silence stretched, a heartbeat suspended in time. I could feel the sweat on my palms, the tremor in my legs, the pounding of my heart echoing in my ears. Finally, she spoke.
Wow.
Alex, or should I say you? Her voice was calm, but the slight quiver betrayed her own surprise. I swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. My mind raced. Should I explain? Should I hide? Should I run? The room felt like it had shrunk even further, the walls closing in around this pivotal moment. I just wanted to try something, I stammered, my voice shaking despite my best efforts. The words sounded inadequate, almost laughable. And yet, they were all I could manage. Alexa took a step closer, her eyes scanning every detail, not with judgment, but with curiosity. I felt my vulnerability laid bare, every inch of my transformation exposed. Then, almost unexpectedly, she smiled. A slow, deliberate smile that made my knees weaken even more than the heels had. You look incredible, she said softly. My heart leapt. Relief, disbelief, and an unexpected surge of pride coursed through me. But even as I felt the tension ebb slightly, the danger wasn't gone. Alexa's acceptance didn't erase the fact that I was still balancing on the edge of exposure, that one wrong move could undo everything. I took a cautious step toward her, heels clicking sharply. Each movement felt monumental. Alexa extended a hand, as if inviting me to step fully into this persona I had nurtured in secret. The thrill of being seen, truly seen, was almost overwhelming. My fingers brushed hers, and for a moment, the fear melted into exhilaration. I was both Alex and the persona I had created, and Alexa was acknowledging both. But then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed violently on the bed. A notification I hadn't expected, a video call from my colleague, someone who had accidentally left a meeting request active. The sound shattered the fragile calm, and panic surged again. I froze, realizing that this intrusion could expose everything, not just to Alexa, but to the outside world. The heels felt impossibly high, my legs unsteady, my mind racing for a solution. I tried to reach the phone discreetly, but in my haste, one heel slipped on the wooden floor. I stumbled, the dress shifting dangerously, and for a horrifying second, I thought Alexa had seen everything. My pulse thundered in my ears. The phone lay just out of reach, buzzing relentlessly. Every second stretched into an eternity. My carefully maintained transformation, the persona, the confidence, the thrill, hung by a thread. Alexa's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of concern crossing her face. "Are you okay?" she asked, voice soft but sharp. My hands trembled as I steadied myself, leaning slightly against the couch. The embarrassment was crushing, yet the adrenaline coursing through me was addictive. I realized in that moment that this wasn't just about makeup or dresses or even crossdressing. It was about control, identity, and the raw, terrifying exhilaration of living on the edge. I finally managed to snatch the phone, silencing the call. My legs shook violently from the effort and the stress. Alexa stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. The warmth was grounding, yet it only heightened the duality I felt. Alex, terrified and exposed. The persona, beautiful and daring. The juxtaposition made my head spin. I realized that tonight, nothing would ever be the same. My secret, my thrill, my transformation, it had collided head-on with reality. And as I stood there, breathless and trembling, the doorbell rang. Another unexpected visitor. The apartment seemed to close in even more tightly. I looked at Alexa, panic and excitement mixing in my eyes. She raised an eyebrow, smirk tugging at her lips. "Looks like the night's just getting started," she said. I swallowed hard, heels digging into the floor. The suspense, the thrill, the fear, it was all real now. There was no turning back. I was fully immersed in this world I had created, and the events that followed would test every ounce of courage, identity, and daring I had cultivated in secret. The doorbell's chime echoed through the apartment, sharp and insistent. My breath caught. Alexa's playful smirk did nothing to calm the storm raging inside me. I could feel the heels digging into my feet as I shifted my weight, the dress brushing my thighs in a reminder of how exposed I was. My reflection in the mirror no longer felt like just me. It was a coiled tension of Alex and the persona I had meticulously crafted, poised on the edge of revelation. "Stay calm," I whispered to myself. The words sounded hollow even as I repeated them. Alexa moved slightly closer, her eyes twinkling with mischief, yet there was a weight in her gaze that made my stomach twist. This was no longer a private performance. Someone else was at the door, and the thrill of being caught surged through me like electricity. I tiptoed toward the door, clutching the small purse as if it were armor. My heart hammered against my ribcage, each step louder than the last. Whoever was out there had no idea what, or who, they were about to encounter. My mind raced. Do I answer it? Pretend nothing is happening? Or let Alexa handle it? The room seemed impossibly small now, every shadow a potential threat, every sound amplified. Alexa's hand brushed lightly against mine. "Go on," she whispered, her voice low and teasing. "It's part of the fun, right?" The words sent a shiver down my spine. Part of me wanted to hide, retreat back into Alex's safe, familiar world. But another part, dangerously bold, wildly alive, wanted to face it. I took a deep breath and stepped closer to the door, every nerve ending screaming with anticipation. The doorknob turned slowly, and I stiffened. Whoever was outside had patience, or perhaps suspicion, or maybe they were unaware of the storm waiting on the other side. I peeked through the peephole. My eyes widened, and my hands froze. It was my neighbor, Mr. Harper, a normally friendly but nosy man, holding a small package and giving a puzzled look toward the door. I swallowed hard, heart thundering. My first instinct was to hide, but the dress, the heels, the transformation, it made retreat impossible. I was fully exposed, caught between fear and exhilaration. Alexa's presence behind me added another layer of tension. She leaned slightly against my shoulder, a silent dare in her gaze. "Quick," I muttered. "Help me think of something." My voice trembled. The neighbor's knock grew impatient, insistent, and I felt the pressure mounting like a vice.